after presenting to the ANC's National Working Committee and National Executive Committee, Electricity Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa has now made public his ideas to end the country's energy crisis. Now, this will include the use of Eskom's emergency diesel generators for the next 6 months, starting in May, improving the performance of the power utility's 5 worst-performing power stations and exempting some important national locations from power outages. Well, to further unpack this, CEO of the organization Undoing Tax Abuse, Wayne Duvenage, joins us. Wayne, thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us this morning. Yesterday, we learned from the electricity minister that, delaying the decommissioning of some of these coal-fired power stations was part and parcel of his new plan to end the country's energy crisis. Your reaction to that, because we were under the impression that it would be terribly expensive to do that.
Yeah, and that's, I believe, is still the case. We need to see the minister provide a clear financial plan around this. There's a lot of cost that's going to have to go into the decarbonizing of those coal-fired power stations if he was to go down that route, and that's very expensive if we're going to meet our climate change commitments. So, it's quite strange that we have plans being put forward or ideas being put forward without very clear plans on what the financial cost is to society. So we don't believe that will come to fruition once they do their homework.
Yeah. You talk of plans, without providing or delineating at least how much it's going to cost, but, plans that also don't reconcile with government policy. I mean, the delaying of decommissioning these power stations doesn't necessarily, as I mentioned, reconcile with the fact that government, has this just energy transition program, the fact that billions have been pledged towards that program. How should we make sense of this? Well, we can't make sense of it until there's a lot more clarity, and it does go against those commitments and the $8.5 billion that has been committed to South Africa's transition to cleaner energy. We're supposed to have an updated integrated resource plan. The last one, I think, was done in 2019. And when you have a clear plan, that's what guides you going forward. So to hear the new minister come on board now and say he's got another idea to extend the life by 10 years or a decade or so of a number of these aging power plants doesn't make sense. We have a journey that we've got to go on with the renewables that have been committed to, and many other things, possibly gas to energy, electricity. There's a number of plans, but I think we need to cement our IRP. We need to be very sure what we want to do, understand the costs, understand our commitment to just energy transition, and then let's move forward. Instead of coming every now and then with some other bright ideas that haven't even been tested from a financial point of view. Going through the Sunday papers this morning, Wayne, it does appear that there's a bit of a power struggle happening right now between the ministers of energy, public enterprises and electricity. Part of the problem, really, being the fact that the president hasn't gazetted or at least outlined exactly what the electricity minister's powers are to be. And so we have this procurement power struggle that's happening between the trio. They're expected to meet later this week to, I suppose, finalize and outline in a more clear manner for South Africans what each independent role will be in solving the energy crisis. But do you think that's part of the problem, the fact that we have way too many hands in this pot right now? Absolutely. When the President announced this decision to introduce an electricity minister, we were quite surprised. We already have 2 ministers that are dealing with the energy space, and in fact, that's too many. What you need to do is have one entity that is focused on this problem. And so what you have was the energy generation under DPE in the past, and under DMRE, under Gwede Mantashe, you had the purchasing and the deals that were being done through alternative energy supply. You don't do that. You've got to bring the two together, and then you throw into the mix a third minister. It's very, very confusing, because this is where accountability, the roles of accountability and who's responsible for what becomes very blurred.
And it creates more confusion. And this is what we warned about, and it's exactly what's taking place. You do not throw people at the problem in new positions. You fix the issues that are giving rise to problems within those ministries. If they can't fix them, find the right people to fix them, but don't just introduce a new entire department and then create more confusion. And that's what's playing out right now. And I think we need leadership, and we need the president to realize he's made a mistake here. Do away with this energy minister, get the responsibilities right within the two existing departments, and try and bring those together into one where we had a Department of Energy in the past.
You know, it was very interesting when coming out of this three-day meeting with the ANC NEC, the fact that they were so open to talk about this recommended new plan, part of it sort of delaying the decarbonization of South Africa's energy output, nothing really on the sort of systemic challenges at Eskom, that largely being the issue around corruption. Are you at all surprised that we haven't heard much with regards to that? I mean, Eskom's previous CEO, Andre de Ruyter, in the last days as you know, chief executive, essentially blowing the lid on how deep the rot of corruption actually goes when it comes to Eskom. Since his departure, we haven't really heard much in terms of how the ANC plans to deal with that corrosive problem at the power utility.
Yeah, and it's a serious one, you know. And when it is put to Parliament that we need to have a very real and deep dive, forensic audit into what is actually going on here, one wonders why it was one political party that was against this, and every other political party voted for it, but they abused their power, and now we will not have this investigation, this deep investigation on exactly what is giving rise to the regular outages related to sabotage. And so, you know, it's really surprising in one sense, but not surprising because it doesn't suit the political agenda that's playing out in that space. You know, what we should be doing is the ministers and the president should be very, very serious about dealing with this problem, do all the audits, do all the investigations, and on top of that, make crimes against Eskom, you know, at the highest level. You know, this is treasonous, almost is where I would put these categories. When you start, you know, stealing parts of pylons that collapse and put cities out of power and the country's economy at risk, this is treason, and everybody that is caught being involved in destabilizing Eskom should be treated with the harshest punishment. We don't hear any discussion of that nature taking place within the ruling party and dealing with the corruption. So, again, there's obviously reasons for that, and you know, we can only speculate as to why they're not serious about dealing with corruption at Eskom.
Yeah. So we get the sense that the governing party isn't necessarily serious about dealing with corruption. But do you think South Africans have a full appreciation of, you know, the broader picture here? You know, we've mentioned the fact that adding another plan to existing plans does very little to help get South Africa out of the load shedding crisis. On top of that, you know, ignoring and turning a blind eye to the corruption also just exacerbates everything. But, you know, are we thinking about the true impact that we're likely to see further down the line if we, in fact, do delay decarbonizing these coal-fired power stations? We know that, you know, the West is very serious about climate change and tackling the issue of climate change. Many countries that we have economic relations with already talking about carbon border taxes. Are we appreciating, you know, the full spectrum of consequences should we, in fact, go down this line?
I don't think so. I don't think our government is, especially when they're allowing themselves to be sidetracked by conversations of the likes of what Kgosientsho Ramokgopa is doing right now. We should be sticking to our plans. We've made these plans 9-10 months ago. They're very clear. We have commitments and assistance from international partners, and we need to move forward. I mean, how is it possible that we are still floundering with 7-8% of our energy coming from renewable energy, and many parts of the world are at 30-40%, and moving ahead? We are so far behind, and every time we come with another plan, and every time somebody else comes in with another idea, it slows things down. It delays matters. And I think the international world that is trying to assist us and trying to get us to be focused on this are going to start losing patience with us and getting frustrated. And we could be left in the dark, seriously and literally, if we do not get our house in order, if we do not get our act together and start moving at the pace that we should have been moving at over a year ago.
Yeah. Now, Wayne, it's not missed for any of us the fact that next year is obviously a crucial political year, being the national elections. I wonder if a lot of the messaging and the rhetoric that's coming out of this National Executive Committee meeting isn't an attempt by the ANC to, of course, garner some sort of confidence ahead of next year's polls. What do you make of that?
You know, I don't think there's any confidence left in this ruling party. The problems that we sit with today, and not just the energy crisis, the education crisis, the health crisis, the policing, safety and security crisis, the list is long. We should not be in this position today. And in a year's time, when the public go to the polls, this is since democracy, this is our next biggest transition that we can make in leadership to take this country forward. You know, our prosperity levels, potential prosperity, we are boxing so well below our weight. We should be so far ahead. And all of this is due to the policies and the mindset and the inward-looking mindset. Instead of putting the public and the people at the center of every decision, they put the ANC at the center of those decisions, and that's why we're in this mess. So what they're trying to do here, what we need the public to know, is that they need to look well beyond what is actually happening and to be serious about getting out there and voting for change next year.
Well, Wayne, thank you as always for your insights. That's Outer CEO Wayne Duvenage joining us there for that conversation around the recommended plan by the ANC's electricity minister, Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, on delaying the decarbonization of those coal-fired plants.